Welcome to Building Better Relationships at Home and at Work with Angela and Patty podcast. This is Patty, a leadership and work-life balance coach from Arizona, USA.
And this is Angela, love and relationship coach from Sydney, Australia. And we are building better relationships with you.
Sharing new perspectives on being heart-centered at home and at work.
So you can draw on your inner power to make your relationships and the world a better place to be around.
The Building Better Relationships Journal and Meditation. We created the Building Better Relationships Journal and Meditation so you can magnetize the better relationships you want and focus on the positive role that you have in creating a better life through your relationships. We are excited for you to discover the gold within you that can help you manifest the love we all crave. The Building Better Relationships Journal has coaching questions that help you listen to the truth of what you want and what helps you to be empowered in love. The Building Better Relationships meditation is designed to strengthen your heart's ability to be that change you wish to see in the world. Why not download it now and think of it as a gift to those you love? If you love journaling and meditation, this is for you. In this podcast episode, we will have special guest Michael Sclafani, the Crystal Queer. Michael has been supporting gifted healers and highly sensitive souls his entire life as a natural intuitive with a passion for psychic and healing arts. Divination, Reiki, and crystal therapy led him on a 25-year journey of reading tarot for people around the world.
Throughout his career as a professional reader, healer, and teacher, Michael has had the honor of connecting with and assisting queerents of all ages from all walks of life. After a recent opportunity to relocate to Italy, Michael is now living on the Adriatic Sea, where he continues to support the world's most powerful light workers from the birthplace of the tarot.
Welcome, Michael.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and on the podcast. Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. We're so excited to have you and to learn more about crystals and the tarot.
Definitely my passions.
And more about you, of course.
Well, how much time do you have? Because I'm so excited to talk together for sure.
Michael, tell us about your crystal journey and how you intuitively select crystals for the week for yourself, followers, and your clients.
Yeah, well, since I was very, very young, I had this natural obsession with crystals. I'm sure you remember the movie The Goonies. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
I could not even tell you what the full premise of the movie was, but there was a scene where everyone finds the treasure in the movie. And I just remember this treasure chest opening and these gems inside of the treasure chest and just being enamored by the beauty of these, what I took as crystals when I was younger, and did the beautiful blues and reds and purple crystals. I was sold in that moment. They were just the most magical things ever. And shortly after seeing that movie, I had an opportunity to go to this festival at the community library, and they had like an obstacle course set up where you had to go under and over things and through like these little tunnels, and you would basically go to the end of the obstacle course and you would dig in this little like artificial piece of earth and dig out crystals. And I dug out a tiger's eye, and I remember just thinking this is the coolest thing ever, and being so obsessed with crystals from that point on. And the rest is crystal history.
So tell us a little bit about your name, the Crystal Queer. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, so I will say for the longest time, I really struggled to find a business name. And I got very in my head about it, and I couldn't pick something that felt right. And I remember one day I just really was feeling low because I felt like I couldn't start on my journey of reading for people professionally or stepping into crystal healing until I had a good business name. And I remember I lit a candle and I said a prayer and I was like, "Dear God, if I'm meant to do this, please help me come up with the perfect business name." And almost like a response to my prayer, a few minutes later, I sat down on my bed and I looked up to my window and I just heard the words intuitively, crystal queer. And I was like, that's perfect. Because, I am very, very queer, and not just gay, but queer in the sense of just very different, in the traditional sense of the word queer. I'm not your average guy. I'm very different from the rest, let's say. As my friend puts it, I'm a unicorn among a herd of geldings. So I've always been the queer one out. And so crystal queer stuck with me. And it really fit my, I guess, ideology of celebrating people that are different, gay, straight, whatever, that really doesn't have anything to do with it, but celebrating people that are the most different and the ones that stand out in the crowd and that are truly queer, celebrating their special brand of medicine. So it all kind of encapsulated the crystals, the, having crystal clear guidance from the cards and from your intuition, and, being different. So that's how it all came together.
I love that because following you on Instagram and Facebook, and you always talk about how unique we all are and special we are, and how queer we are with our own uniqueness. And I love that.
Yeah, it took me a long time to celebrate it, and I think for so many people, it seems kind of like a curse at first to be different because we're kind of programmed to want to fit in and to want to be a part of the tribe and the pack. And when you can't do that, no matter how hard you try, it can be a really rough road until you finally surrender into the fact that you were never meant to be blending in. You're never meant to be one of the rest. You're meant to be your own queer light in this world and to stand out and celebrate your differences. And I'm still working on it myself.
That's beautiful. How can crystals make a difference in our lives, and how do you build relationships with crystals?
Yeah, well, I think it's been about, wow, I would say going on almost 30 years since crystals have been a part of my life. And I will say, I was talking to you before we went live, and there's so much science behind crystals. The frequencies, the pulse rates of crystals. Crystals really are scientifically known to be the most vibrating objects on the planet. So this is already known by science that they vibrate so quickly and the frequencies are so high. But even science aside, I feel like as humans, because our DNA is also crystalline, we all have crystalline DNA. So we have a natural draw and tendency to, gravitate toward these high vibrating objects. So that's why throughout antiquity, throughout time, crystals and mineral medicine has always played such a huge role in cultures all across the globe. We inherently realize that just like the herbs and plants and trees have healing properties, and they've been growing maybe a month, a few weeks, whatever, these crystals that have been growing in our planet for thousands, sometimes millions of years, of course have healing properties. So science is just now catching up to all of the lore and the mythos around crystals. But I feel like as this new age dawns and we all step into this new era, moving into a new dimension, a higher vibration, personally, collectively, we're all being drawn back to that kind of original medicine that comes with the planet in the crystals and minerals that have always been here. And just to extrapolate on that, I feel like, you know, it's a very intuitive process for me to be led to the crystal that's going to support me. And, you know, especially choosing crystals for other people. You know, for me, I know I have many different friends, many different queer friends that have their own queer ways of connecting with crystals and their intuition. And, you know, if you look at all of the clairs, you know, like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairtangency, clairsentience, all different ways of interpreting vibration. We all interpret the vibrations and the energies of crystals differently. So some of my friends are feelers. They'll hold a crystal in their hand and they'll know, oh, wow, this crystal makes me feel great. I feel warmth. I feel like this crystal is meant for me. Or they'll hold a crystal and they'll be like, nope, not for me. Like I don't get a good vibe from this energy, this medicine. Other people will see clairvoyantly colors of the crystals or be drawn to a certain color vibration that then they find in crystal form. And, you know, like myself, I actually feel like when I walk into a crystal shop, if I set the intention that I want to find the crystal that is going to be best for me, it's the funniest thing. My eyes will be drawn to the section of the crystal shop where my crystal baby is, like the one that I need in that moment most. I will almost glance at it immediately and go over there and then investigate and, you know, really fine tooth comb what crystals are there. And it's almost like I'm instantly drawn to it. When I choose crystals for people, it's very claircognizant for me. Over the years, I've learned so many crystal names, and I'm just scratching the surface, to be honest. I mean, there are so many crystals, so much mineral medicine on God's green earth that it seems almost impossible to know all of it. But throughout the years, you create this kind of library, this mental library of all the different crystals and just kind of like loose associations with each one. And I will just take a breath and I'll say, okay, what is the crystal or the mineral medicine that's most going to benefit Patty today? And I'll just listen. And then I'll get a crystal, or I'll tune in and I'll just, you know, I'll write Angela's name, let's say if we're having a session, and I'll just run my fingers across it and I'll be like, okay, what is the most beneficial, helpful crystal for Angela? And I'll just wait until I get a clear name. And I did that for both of you. So I don't know if you want to know what crystals I channeled for you both.
Oh, how lovely.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, I tuned in but the point is it comes very quickly and I don't think it through. I don't think about what would they like most? What colors are their favorites? It's just kind of like, give me the name. And sometimes I will have to really sit with the name. Like the other day, one of my queerents, the crystal that came for them was iolite. And I've heard iolite before. I have a beautiful piece of iolite. But when it was coming through for me psychically, it sounded like, I'm like, what is this? Like, and I'm trying to listen, like, what is this? And I remember I have a Crystalpedia, which is a beautiful book of crystals. And I was like, okay, I need some help. And I just pulled like a little bibliomancy move and I turned to a random page, and I landed right on iolite. That's what it was, iolite. So I could hear it. But in any case, your crystals came through loud and clear. So I'll tell you what I got for both of you. For Patty, I actually felt that tourmaline is such a helpful crystal for you. And I think when I got tourmaline, you know, there's all different variations of tourmaline, all different colors: black tourmaline, brown tourmaline, blue tourmaline, pink tourmaline. I mean, there's a bunch of them. But I got that the energetics around tourmaline would be most helpful for you, grounding into your sense of power and authority, and making sure that any energies in your surrounding environment, or any energies, say that 2 times fast, any energies that didn't serve you would kind of just roll off of your back and not affect you as deeply. So tourmaline, I felt for Patty, was a really powerful one. And then Angela, for you, I actually instantly got kunzite. Are you familiar with that crystal, kunzite?
I am. I might have a tiny little smidgen of a kunzite somewhere here as well. I'm not sure. I don't know
Oh,
how.
there it is. Beautiful. I love it. I love that you have one right there.
Yes, I don't have, I mean, I have some, but I don't have a lot. So that one has traveled the world a bit too. I don't know if
Really?
people can see it. Yeah,
Ah,
I think
it's
it's
beautiful.
kunzite. Is that the right color?
Do you know what? I think kunzite is usually like a pinkish color, pinkish to clearish.
Yeah.
But yeah, I bet that's it. I bet it's hard to tell on Zoom all the time. And
Yes.
even when people's in front of me, I'm like, I'm not even exactly sure what it is, but if that's what you reached for, that's most likely kunzite. But you know, kunzite is, from what I know about it, and again, just like tarot cards, there's 1,000 meanings and associations for every crystal. But kunzite, when I think of kunzite, I think of usually people who have such a wide open heart are drawn to kunzite. And it's usually those people that have such a sensitive, beautiful heart that go through the most painful heartache in this world, or heartbreak. You know, it's like Rumi says, it's the broken heart that lets the light in. It's the heart that never breaks, that atrophies and dies. So the kunzite energy, I feel like, supports people that have had their hearts broken open, and now they are just prisms of immense light because they've gone through that pain. So kunzite supports that kind of giving and receiving of pure love, no matter what emotional traumas you've been through or experienced. It helps you create that loving treasure from the trauma.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you.
And we
That
both
was
had those crystals on.
within reach.
Way,
Isn't that
okay, there it is.
hilarious? And we did not even know that you were
I
even connected.
love it. I'm telling you, ladies, it still blows my mind, the crystal synchronicities, where I'm like, you know, people will say that they're like, oh, I'm wearing that crystal right now, or oh, I was just given that crystal, or I had a dream about that crystal. I'm like, okay, then you are in the flow and you know exactly what mineral medicine you need. So I love that the proof is right there. It's right next to you.
What crystal are you wearing right now around your neck that's beautiful?
Oh, thank you. I am wearing labradorite, or labradorite, however you pronounce it. And you know, it's funny because this sounds shallow, but I will often choose crystals that complement the colors that I'm wearing. But I'm learning that I actually choose the colors that I wear because of the crystal that wants to show up. So it's kind of a divine bait and switch. I think I'm like, you know, accessorizing the crystal to the color, but really I'm channeling the color to complement the crystal. But there's a little bit of like a greenish energy in this labradorite. And, you know, labradorite, I know a lot of intuitives and psychics channels use for its, not only its protective qualities and its ability to help you channel from a higher source, but it's a very magical stone. You know, it helps kind of awaken your magic and your intentions to help you set intentions that are in the highest good for everyone involved of what you're doing. So that's why labradorite, I think, wanted to come out tonight for all of us. But I love that you both had the crystals that it came through for you right next to you. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's so.
So
So, Michael, moving to the tarot, I have so many questions, but I wonder if you can share how the tarot and the crystals connect for you. I mean, there might be 1,000 ways they connect as well, but how do they connect for you?
Yeah, great question. I feel like it's just peanut butter and jelly. It kind of goes hand in hand. Most people that work with the cards know the power of crystals and know the power of crystals work with the cards. And I think they just all kind of line up with that vibration of I'm looking for the medicine to help me step into my most powerful self. I'm open to receiving guidance, healing vibrations, and crystals and divination, like I said, they're right there next to each other. They go hand in hand because I believe they both work off of subtle vibrations. It's the meanings that we ascribe to them. And even though the cards are all made up of archetypes and have such a deep, rich connection to numerology, to astrology, to all of these archetypal energies that make up all of life. Tarot is known as the book of life that's segmented into 78 cards. So I believe and another thing that I've been told and that I truly believe is that, we have the universe within us. So every crystal that's out there in the world, every healing energy that's been growing in the earth or in the universe is also within us. So I think we really reflect, the crystals reflect ourselves to us, and same with the cards. It's a way of really going deeper into ourself and discovering something that might have been buried for some time. So I feel like, and they look really good together in photos, crystals and cards. So I think that's another thing that connects them.
It's the right color.
The right color, and they harmonize and they coordinate with each other. The cards and the crystals. It's really funny when I take pictures of my Queerents spreads. I'll notice like, wow, the cards that they pulled just look so beautiful with the crystals that decided to come out to play. So it is all connected. Everything is connected, and I feel like the cards and the crystals help us make sense with that, sense of that through synchronicity, the term that Carl Jung coined, synchronicity. And it's basically, all about events that are connected and that attract one another based on their meaning, just how the cards work through their meanings. And the crystals, I feel like the meanings that are associated with certain crystals also, the law of vibration brings them to us, and it kind of just plays together in a symphony. So always pay attention to the cards that come out and pay attention to the crystals that show up in your consciousness, because they're speaking to you. There are meanings there that are going to serve you if you delve into them. I hope that made sense. That was kind of all around the mulberry bush.
Oh, no, I love that idea of the meaning and the resonance between the meaning. And yeah, that's going to give me a lot to think about with Jung as well. And you've moved to Italy, where you say the birthplace of tarot is. So can you share about that, the birthplace of tarot, and how you feel reading from there and the magic? Share a little magic with us.
It was so cool. First of all, I thought I was going to be in Italy for 2 weeks. And that's kind of the funny thing of me being here for over a year now, was I thought I was going to be here for 2 weeks on a vacation. My parents had moved here a couple of years ago, and we went on a cruise through the Mediterranean and the Holy Land. And we started in Italy and just basically got off the plane and onto the ship. And then when we got off the ship, we were going to spend a couple of weeks with them and finally see Italy, because for years I've been wanting to see Italy. 10 years ago, I had an opportunity to go through some of Europe on a bus tour, and we went to France, Germany, Serbia, all of these places. And I just thought, oh, we are so close to Italy, and I wish I could go see the land of my people. And most of my family had been there and I hadn't. So I was like, oh, Italy, Italy, Italy for years. I gotta go. Little did I know Italy was going to have its way with me 10 years later. But I came here for 2 weeks, and I'll say this, Arizona, where I was living for the longest time, I had really sunk into a comfort zone. I am infamous for being a hermit. I am such a hermit. It's in my human design. I'm a heretic hermit, and I am so happy hermiting away from the world and just living in a hermit hole. And I feel like for the last while, I won't even say how many years, but for years, I've been feeling that I hermited myself away And I wasn't really experiencing life to the fullest. I was living in my safety zone. I was kind of hiding from the world. I felt too sensitive for most people. And I just wanted to be in my room, in my office, doing readings and going live, but not really spending time out in the world. And when I came to Italy, I cannot tell you the amount of signs, like miracles, that were urging me to stay in Italy. The numbers, the synchronicities, the messages, of course, my cards. It's like everything was lining up to tell me, this is your chance to break free of your comfort zone. You know that tarot is such a huge part of your life's purpose and your path and your passion. This is where it all started. So make your choice. Are you going to stay or not? And I was like, you know what? I don't know how often this chance is going to come up. I'm going to stay. And I decided to stay in Italy. And at first it was like, oh my God, I feel so lucky. I'm moving to Italy like out of nowhere. This is great. Things just lined up to make it easy. You know, I don't speak Italian. I'm still learning, but I didn't speak any Italian at the time. And it was just a whole different world. And at first I was so excited to be here and to immerse myself in the land of tarot and the magic and the miracles. And after I decided to stay and the rest of my family left and went back to the States, like the next day, I descended into a dark night of the soul. And I was like, what the hell have I done? Like, what have I done? Like, I feel like I'm stuck here now and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have any direction. And it was a very, very difficult first 6 months of being here. But I'm so thankful for that, because that sense of like, what am I doing? I didn't come with a plan. I don't really know where to go. Even though I know I want to be here, I feel lost. And through that dark night, really helps me clarify what I'm doing, what I want, what my plan is moving forward. And if anything, reconnected me to my crystals and my cards. Because I thought I was going for 2 weeks to Italy, I carried a handful of crystals with me, where usually I'm used to having a crystal cavern around me of thousands of crystals. I went to a handful of crystals and a few decks, my OG deck being one of them, the first ever tarot deck that I had. So something told me to bring the essentials, not knowing that I was going to be here, but it was kind of like I had to leave behind everything that I'd identified with, all of the crystals, the tools that I might have leaned on as a crutch almost, to kind of come back to myself and go back to square one and then find my way from, you know, my own heart without any kind of outside tools. So anyway, again, long-winded, being in Italy now and being in the land of tarot, because, you know, originally playing cards, without doing a long history of the tarot, but playing cards really they originated in 9th century China. That's where we have the first records of playing cards. And then in the, you know, a few centuries later, in the Islamic countries, Islamic traditions, they had a game called Mamluk, which was a playing card game, which was brought to Italy. And then in the time of the Renaissance, those playing cards became tarocchi, which was the Italian version of that playing card game. And it was mostly played by Italian nobles in northern Italy. And they played it as like a parlor game. And that is what was then used as a divination tool. And people, the nobility of Italy, using this as a parlor game and using it as just, you know, it was really creative and fun the way it was originally used. From what I've learned is that people used it almost like, in one sense, they would use it to pull cards for each other and then have to create poetry for one another or sing a song for each other based on the cards. So there was like a lot of creativity and play with the cards. And then it kind of morphed into divination and fortune telling when people saw the synchronicities in the cards that were really just a game, that started unearthing more direct reflections of happenings in their lives and things that really made some connections that made people think, wow, there's more to this than just a game. That's when it took on more of a divination style in the 17th century and then onward through the Renaissance times. And now it's morphed into something completely different even today and keeps continuing to evolve. So I could say more, but clearly does that give you enough of a kind of idea of how tarot started?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great explanation of the parlor games. It's amazing how something can come from just playing, and then you find the meanings, the related meanings.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
do you do readings for Italians locally? How do they react to, because I'm Italian background, and I know once when I was in Sicily, I brought up astrology. I think I just said the word, and they went, oh, that's rubbish. So there was in Italy when I was there, and that's only the early 2000s, not a very positive approach to anything woo-woo.
It depends who you talk to, because I will say, this is the land where astrology, there's an illustrious history with astrology in Italy and the Mediterranean. I mean, the Oracle of Delphi and the oracles that were used, like even the Vatican itself. I recently learned this, that the Vatican, the epicenter of conservatism through the world and, Catholicism, the Vatican was built over what they called the Vattuccino, which was where people would travel to speak to the oracles. So it was like a pagan center where people went for divination and for psychic gifts to be bestowed upon them. And then the Vatican, built on top of it now, it's Catholicism. But this is a land with such a deep history in the magical, the esoteric, and it's built into a lot of the Catholicism too. So when modern day people were raised under that idea of, this is the way God is and the rest is the devil, it's funny because if they take a good look at what's built into the churches, the architecture of these churches, the symbolism on the walls, they'd see, actually, there's a rich magical history that Catholicism was actually built upon. So it's funny if you look a little bit deeper, but to your point, I've had some similar reactions where some Italians, I tell them I learned to say in Italian, I do what I do. You say, sono cartomante, which means like I'm a card reader, I'm a psychic. And when I say that, people will say, oh, what do you do in Italian? And I'll say, oh, sono cartomante. And some people will go, è vero? Oh, that's amazing. And then other people will go, like I'm saying. So and now I have fun with it because, I love that polarizing reaction now, as I've done this as long as I have. But that's kind of the split of people. Some people are fascinated and so excited, and other people quickly douse themselves in holy water after they speak to me.
I'm glad you have that impact on people. You're going to bring them to the divine in some way.
Yes, it's a polarizing art form for sure, but it still fascinates. No matter what, it fascinates people deep down.
Deep down, they're attracted to, there's something calling them that's deep. So with the tarot, how do you see it evolving and helping people today? It's got its own history from what you shared, that where it evolved, what's changed for people, for the tarot today.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've been doing this for a while. And, I think when a lot of us begin learning the tarot, we refer to that handy dandy little white book that comes with the cards, especially like the Rider-Waite deck or more traditional decks. And it's fascinating to me how when I read the traditional interpretations of the cards, how it so reflects that dense, medieval, fearful approach to life versus now where you look at the cards and how more intuitive, dare I say more high vibrational interpreters interpret the meanings and the archetypes of the cards. It's like two different worlds. And I read some of the, traditional interpretations and I'm like, oh, I just get a pit in my stomach. Like that's not helpful at all. Like that is such a fearful approach to what this card can mean. So I feel like just like humanity, we've come a long way as we've evolved and we can see things from a higher, more loving perspective. The cards have evolved too, at least the interpretation of the cards. The archetypes still ring true, but it's the way we interpret the cards in a more loving way versus a more fearful, dense, third dimensional way that is so different from today to, the 1500s. It's a very different interpretation. And I've noticed that. So I think the cards are always going to evolve, the way we interpret them, the way we work with crystals. I mean, any way that we approach these tools, it's just a reflection on human consciousness, where human consciousness is at the moment. Either we're more fear-based and the death card is going to mean a plague, or we're seeing from a higher vibrational standpoint and the death card represents this positive transformation that's inevitable, that doesn't even have to do with physical death. But you see, the set of eyes that you view the cards through really make all the difference. And that's why I tell people when I teach people tarot, or I have like tarot tutoring, and people are so excited to learn the cards. But I've heard from so many people that they'll go to the cards when they feel like just very low. They feel very sad, they feel very afraid, and they'll consult the cards. And I always say, never consult the tarot when you are feeling low and frightened, because any way that you interpret the cards, no matter which cards you get, odds are you may have a fearful interpretation of those cards. And, the cards are reflections. So when you're really afraid of something, you'll pull cards that reflect that fear, and then you'll become even more afraid and you'll feel even more dismal. And it's something I call having a tarot of terror moment. I don't know if you've ever ridden that ride at California Adventure, the Tower of Terror, where the elevator just drops you. It's kind of what the cards can do to you if you don't approach them from a loving place. You'll look for some comfort, and instead you'll get the Tower card next to, a reversed star card, and you'll just be like, "Ugh," and then you'll, God forbid, read the traditional interpretations of those cards, and you'll feel awful. You'll feel like you failed as a person. You will not get a good reading from those cards. And just to wrap that up, one of the most important things when approaching the cards or any kind of intuitive work that after decades of doing this, I've learned is the most reliable way to interpret is through our emotional guidance system. When we are feeling a sense of love and resonance and satisfaction, even if the message is saying, hey, there's some things that need to come into balance. There's some things that are out of balance. There's some things that can change for the better. Even if it's not telling you what you want to hear, your emotional guidance system, if you're interpreting it correctly, will feel a sense of peace, a sense of harmony. But once you read the cards, and the cards that you're interpreting make you feel like, oh my God, I failed, or oh my God, things are not looking good, and you feel that like pit in your stomach, that pit in your stomach is proof that you're not interpreting the cards correctly. So always follow your emotional GPS when you're doing any kind of divination or spiritual interpretation, because that emotional guidance system will always lead you to accurate guidance versus fearful ego non-guidance.
Wow.
Again, maybe way too much information, way too many words, but that's what came through.
That was very helpful, especially about the emotional resonance, like feeling a good feeling when you're doing the reading, even if it could be about something negative, but you're getting an internal measurement to say this is correct, or this feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even when there's problems that come up in the cards, once you've learned the archetypal energies of each card, within every problem or challenge, there's always an underlying solution there. And when you can see things that, are coming up as challenges, you'll feel a sense of resonance, like, yeah, I knew that already. I kind of, that resonates with the challenges that I was already feeling. And you'll understand what the solution then is. And it'll offer you a sense of peace rather than a judgmental verdict against your worth as a person, or anything that feels like it hurts to interpret. Whenever you feel hurt by the cards, you're not interpreting it really in alignment with your higher self. And I'll just say, I remember Casey Miller, the founder of SWIHA, Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. I remember her saying that she looks at the cards as love letters from spirit. And that is how I approach the cards. They're coming from a higher source, a higher self that loves us unconditionally. When you sit with the divination tool, you're connecting to the divine. The divine is not judging you. The divine is loving you and supporting you to find the truth, to vibrate as highly as you can, to enjoy this life experience to the utmost degree. If ever you feel a sense of judgment or condemnation, which is kind of like, Old Testament thinking, like a vengeful God that's going to judge you and send you to hell, if ever you feel that energy, you're not in alignment with that loving divine energy. But when you can look at what's being reflected impartially and say, okay, there's some things that feel a little bit out of balance that I could work on, but coming back to that balance and that solution energy and feeling that peace, that's how you know that you're interpreting correctly. You're connected to the divine rather than the ego.
Wow. Yes. Michael, I know you've read for me before during your Instagram and Facebook lives that you do. And every time it was amazing because the message was exactly what I needed at the time. And
Good.
when you share your crystal of the week and how you connect to that for everybody for that week is so beautiful. There's this question that we always ask, how can you build a better relationship using the tarot and crystals? Well, I already know that because I see it with your work, how you change people's lives for the better. When you give them a crystal, when you give them a reading, but how? By using tarot and crystals, it builds better relationships for people. Explain what that means to you and how it means to your audience and to your clients.
Thank you for that. And that's such a good question. And it's such a simple answer in my book because it always, always, always comes back to our relationship with ourselves. Always. And I've noticed that in doing so many readings for so many people, especially when, queerents want to know about this specific person in their life or this person, or what do you see on this person? Tell me what you think about this person. And it's always a reminder that our relationships reflect ourselves to ourselves. And so I feel like the cards and the crystals have shown me that even when we point them outward at a specific person or a relationship outside of ourselves, ultimately they're always going to bring our focus back to what's in alignment or out of alignment with ourselves. And that's always what's highlighted. And law of attraction, the law of vibration, whatever we're vibrating or emanating will be attracted to us and return to us. So rather than using the cards to, focus solely outward, it always comes back to how we can be better to ourselves. And so I've really learned that. And I will say that even when I pull cards for clients and, they'll ask me about, is this person good for me, let's say, to date? Or, is this person a good business partner or whatever? And then we'll look at the cards. Ultimately, what it comes back to is highlighting the archetypes within them that are really calling out to be balanced and to be recognized in order to harmonize with others. So I feel like the best thing you can do to have the, great relationships that are fulfilling and nurturing and balanced is to find that way to fulfill yourself, to nurture yourself, to balance yourself, because that always is reflected outwardly. And rather than looking for problems in other people or situations to be fixed in others, it's always about, people also look to the cards like, tell me what my future holds. Tell me what, I'm walking into. And we can forget that we're the creators of our own reality. So the cards really are about us creating positive relationships, creating healthy relationships, rather than being at the mercy of what a relationship is or what the future holds. It's more about what we're creating and what we truly desire to create more than anything. And they're tools, both the crystals and the cards, to help us really get down to a place of self-inquiry where we realize we're getting clarity on what we want, what we deserve, and what we are going to create.
Love that. Just so everybody knows, I met Michael at Sweetheart. I took a crystal class and he was my teacher. And I loved it because he's so knowledgeable about crystals. And it kind of gave me an idea because I didn't really at that time know that much about crystals and how to connect with them. Thank you, Michael.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's such an honor to be able to talk about this and just talk shop about the crystals and the cards with you, especially someone that's so naturally attuned to working with these tools so well. It's an honor. So thank you.
Thank you. And Angela
And
actually used to do tarot, so she
yeah,
has a background on that in that.
yeah. So
Oh,
I used to do tarot dressed up as a gypsy fortune teller
the most,
in
yes.
Florida. Some of the studios, Universal and Disney, and a few shows there. So we had a whole bunch of different psychics all dressed up, and a few actual gypsies as well would work with us from the lineage of their family. They had gypsy background. So I was around quite a few interesting characters that taught me a lot about divination and different lineages of divination as well. Yeah, that's
Fascinating.
and I still use the crystal ally cards, and they came to me in the 90s. They really helped to attune, I guess, a lot of emotional balancing. So I worked with those cards for a long time. But one time I also had to release my crystals. I was living in Australia and I moved overseas, and then I left a whole set of crystals to a young boy. I just had to leave. Like, it was very interesting. It was like, okay, I'm not carrying that forward in that next phase of life. That was very interesting.
You passed on the torch.
Yes. I
Oh,
loved seeing him. He was about 10. Yeah, he was 10 and I saw his eyes with that box.
like the Goonies. Yes, you hit the jackpot. Well, that's so cool. And you know that part of offering the services of divination when you're dressing up and kind of stepping into a character, that was how I started. Like I loved assuming a character to be able to do the cards and do the crystals. And it was so freeing. And I learned that, throughout history, people would assume that kind of persona, whether they would, dress, or like men would often dress as women to be the diviners, or women would be, decorate themselves with almost like they were unrecognizable to become that messenger for spirit, and that assuming that role as almost performer helps to bring through the spiritual messages. So I can only imagine. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall seeing you with the gypsy energy and bringing that healing through. That must have been such a blast.
Yeah, yeah. It's still one of my favorite gigs from the life that I've had so far. It's good. And the people as well, because I think also in Orlando and Florida, it's got that magical fantasy land place. So people actually, you can channel magic there. That's the other interesting thing about it. It wasn't just Disney having a good idea. He did sort of pick up something from the place. It's a funny place.
Oh, that's so cool. You make me want to book a Disney vacation pronto.
Yeah.
Feel that magic again.
If you do, I've got Melanie Lajoie. She's my teacher and my friend who brought all of us readers together so she could introduce you to some other options down there. Yeah.
So cool. Yes, please. Thank you. I'll definitely keep that name. Melanie
Yeah.
Lejoie.
Lajoie, the joy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. How cool. Oh, I can only imagine the tips and tricks you've learned from that cultural approach to
Yeah.
divination in the card. Oh my gosh, we got to talk.
Yeah. And so, Michael, how can our listeners find you and contact you about your services?
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So right now, I'm primarily active on social media. My handle is Crystal Queer Live on both Facebook and Instagram because I connect with everyone primarily through live streams. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook at Crystal Queer Live and just look out for the weekly live streams that I do and connect with most people that way. And through my social media channels, you can book a private reading with me as well. And I also offer tarot classes, private tarot tutoring. And so if you're stepping into divination, learning more about connecting with crystals and just being a channel for yourself and for the betterment of our collective, my greatest passion is to be a guide in that area. So I'd love to.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. And is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
You know, I will say the world is changing. Our world is changing right now. And it is so important that as we're raising into the fifth dimension right now and kind of like paving the way for the age of Aquarius, that we are all so connected to our hearts. And this is something that I have to tell myself on a daily basis because I have a very powerful mind that sometimes takes over. And I have to remind myself to stay in my heart. And I feel like that is just the greatest message of our time is that with technological advances and all of this artificial intelligence, it's never been more important to stay connected to our AI, our authentic intelligence, our astral intelligence, because no matter what is being created in an artificial sense that might be dazzling and beguiling to our senses, our authentic astral alignment and intelligence is what's going to keep us in our heart and keep us from getting stuck in our head so that we can really bring the future to being through the energy of love for all of us and unity. So that's really my ultimate message. Stay in the heart, and love is the guide as we move into uncharted territory in our world.
Thank you, Michael. That was beautiful.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for listening. Please share the podcast with others and check out Michael's services and products. We will have Michael's contact information in the show notes, and check his lives out on Mondays.
Thank you for listening to Building Better Relationships with Angela and Patty. Send us a message and please like or share the podcast or donate with the Anchor donate button. We really value your feedback.